Hello, I am making this video as a means of providing public input into S.1241 and would encourage others to do the same. The proposed bill is entitled the Combating Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing, and Counterfeiting Act of 2017, sponsored by Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, and Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat from California. This bill proposes, among other things, for a person to declare when they cross U.S. Customs with more than $10,000 in digital currency holdings. This is similar to the way we treat cash now. I appreciate these efforts to keep America safe and the opportunity afforded by the architecture of our government for meaningful input. Freedom of speech, association, expression, and conscience are principles of enlightenment bestowed upon us by our founding fathers. Section 13 of the proposed bill addresses Ethereum and other decentralized digital currencies such as Bitcoin. Cryptocurrencies are in a time of rapid innovation and personal empowerment. Many compare it to the Internet of 1994. These digital currencies provide users unforgeable access to their funds and afford consumer protection in the most powerful and direct way possible. That is, by allowing users direct control over their financial transactions. Ethereum and Bitcoin users can trust the validity of their transactions without relying on supposedly trusted third-party custodians, such as Wells Fargo, which was recently discovered to have been signing their customers up for credit cards and other unsolicited services in order to obtain the associated fees and banker bonuses. The fundamental security of these blockchain networks are in their decentralized nature. I can understand the desire to apply centralized regulatory frameworks in an effort to keep citizens safe, because it has worked well in the past. However, centralized points on the Ethereum and Bitcoin networks have proven to be the weak points in their security. For example, users have reported that an app available for download on any smartphone device allegedly changes the recipient to a different one than intended. A few years ago, a website that sold Magic the Gathering cards online for Bitcoin turned into an exchange that was hacked and users lost their funds. In both cases, the underlying digital currencies are back in circulation. The point of weakness was the centralized point of failure, not the digital currency. Section 13 of this bill would add a centralized checkpoint and vulnerability to its users, which now reportedly include the United Nations. When users are in control of their own funds, referred to as private keys, the network does not suffer from the centralized risks. The blockchain design does not easily conform to existing expectations and experiences of consumers and regulators because there has never before been a large-scale, secure, and decentralized network like this. I understand the tendency to want to apply the centralized models because they are familiar and understandable. However, introducing this model to these decentralized networks make its users susceptible to a loss of funds because it creates a centralized point. There are a lot of individuals trying to hack the system and steal users' funds every day. In terms of fighting terrorism and other nefarious use cases, the same can be said of the US dollar. However, unlike cash, and contrary to the understanding of many, Bitcoin transactions are not anonymous. The central public ledger allows anybody to observe all of the transactions on the network. It is true that transactions are not tied to an identity, but the transparent nature of these transactions can provide law enforcement a strategic advantage by providing them an unfiltered look into a suspect's transactions. If they successfully link the two through good old-fashioned detective work, it can provide a similar advantage as the Allies had in World War II when they cracked the Enigma code. Once an identity is tied to a specific transaction, it can be followed through the blockchain network, allowing intelligence agencies a window into all the transactions with the holder of the digital currency. This is especially useful against terrorists. Ethereum, Bitcoin, and similar digital currencies are not a convenient network for these types of uses due to their visible nature. I personally see limited sustainable use for these transactions on their side, but great advantage on the investigator side. Digital currencies are nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Restricting access to the hardware devices and having people declare their digital currency holdings will likely have the opposite effect because one can simply access their funds with a 12-word phrase. That means it would be entirely possible for an individual to have no signs of digital currencies on them, but once they enter the country, use their 12-word multi-sig seed, only known to that owner, to access the entire balance of their funds. I believe this would render the entire effort mute at best and destructive at worst, potentially hampering the abilities of intelligence agencies to conduct detective work. I can understand your desires and believe you may be on the right course in areas, but I feel the potential of transactions that are transmitted in the clear by anybody in the world, anywhere in the world, has much more benefit to both law enforcement agencies and the 6 billion people who do not have access to financial systems that we enjoy in the Western world, far outweigh any potential benefit in this law. In short, it will be confusing and time-consuming for those who would want to adhere to the laws, and criminals would simply not state their holdings. I am encouraging you to please strike the phrase digital currencies from Section 13 of the bill to help keep our country safe. Thank you, and I appreciate your attention to the details in this law.